Hello, I'm Jim Hessler. I'm the founder of Path Forward Leadership and the author of the book, Land on Your Feet, Not on Your Face. Today we're going to talk about one of what we call mental models that we use in our Path Forward Leadership workshop. And it's called the Power of TED. And the TED in this case stands for the Empowerment Dynamic. This comes from the work of David Emerald, a Washington State resident who wrote this wonderful book called The Power of TED. We recommend the book highly. I'm going to just give you an overview of the concept right now. It's an important one. The Power of TED starts with an existing model called the drama triangle, which some of you may be familiar with. And what the drama triangle describes is three codependent types of relationships, or three codependent types of activities, or three codependent types of people that work in unhealthy ways. And what David Emerald suggests is a better way to think about that. So we're going to draw the drama triangle with all of its difficulties, and then we're going to transform that into the empowerment dynamic just by looking through all three of these roles in a different lens. So the first part of the victim triangle that we're talking about is indeed the victim. Now, this is either a person or a mindset. Very few of us would be able to say that we haven't been victims or that we aren't victims at some times. A victim mindset is basically a disempowered mindset. It's a person or a situation a person finds themselves in which they say, I'm powerless. There's nothing I can do to change this. This is not about me. I can't create what I want to create around me. That's up to other people. And the victim stance is very common, obviously. I'm sure you're all recognizing that just as I say that this is a very common mindset. It's particularly common, I think, in younger or less mature people. I know that certainly earlier in my life, I engaged in a lot more victim type of thinking than I do now at this stage. The victim is codependent with a couple of other roles that people play in this triangle, and one of them is a persecutor. Now, again, a persecutor can be both an individual, or it can be a set of actions on the part of an individual that the victim looks at and says, well, there you go. That person has more power than I have, that person can hold me down, that person can make my life miserable. The victim, in order to tell their story, and each one of these points represents a story that we tell ourselves about the way the world is. The victim is telling themselves this story, which is that I'm powerless. The victim needs a persecutor or a perceived persecutor in order for them to be able to tell their story about victimhood. So there are people out there that are persecutors. There are people clearly out there that like to put that like to subjugate other people, hold them down, to exercise power over them in ways that make them feel good. They feel like they're not whole until they're gaining power and status and stature over other people. So the persecutor also needs victims. A persecutor can't be a persecutor unless there are people who kowtow to that and give in to that sort of persecuting behavior. Keeping in mind that the victim will often interpret people's behavior as persecuting behavior because they need it to tell their story. If a victim doesn't have a persecutor, they'll probably go find one, or they will look through that lens of interpretation of other people's behavior to look for examples that help them tell their story. The third leg of this is the rescuer. The rescuer needs both the victim and the persecutor. The rescuer's story is that their meaning and purpose in their life is to fix things for other people. And in fixing things for other people, they often triangulate this relationship. They protect this person, this victim, from the persecutors. These two people often gang up and compare notes about this person. and they say, oh gee, poor me, and this person says, oh good, there's somebody that I can rescue. So it's all codependent. This person can't be a rescuer unless they have victims to rescue, and unless that victim has persecutors. The victim can't be a victim without both a persecutor, and they may not have rescuers, but they'll attract them like flies. There'll be these two kind of love to be together. Now, the problem is the obvious problem, so I don't need to talk about very much in this dynamic, but I think you can all see it's a very common type of dynamic that happens in families and teams and organizations. And what we need to do, if we can, is we need to change, evolve and grow beyond this kind of natural set of behaviors that we fall into. And this is where David Emerald, in his book, The Power of TED, suggested that all three of these roles could be seen differently and transformed into something quite different than what they are. And what he says, first of all, is the victim needs to become a creator. Now, the creator mindset is very simply this. I have the power to either change my circumstances or to create more grace about my circumstances. It doesn't mean that I'm going to give in to things that aren't as they should be, but it means I'm going to work to create something better rather than simply be passive. This is an active mindset. This is a passive mindset. This is a leadership mindset. This is not. And for many people, they become leaders by virtue of deciding that they are going to operate in a creator mindset rather than a victim mindset. Now, there's a lot of responsibility and weight that comes along with this creator mentality. A person who really has a strong creator impulse tends to walk into every situation and say, how have I either helped create what I see, or how can I help create something better than what I see? And it's a lot of responsibility, but it opens up the possibility for change, for growth, and obviously for leadership. The rescuer, we want to turn into a coach. And what's the difference between a coach and a rescuer? Well, a coach isn't in the business of solving the victim's problems for them. The coach is invested in turning the victim into a creator. The coach says, I believe in your potential to make changes in your life that you need to make. I believe in your ability. I will support that. I'll be there for you. I will counsel and coach you and support you in your growth. But I won't waltz in and rescue you in ways that are unhelpful. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes we have to have somebody's back and we have to step into situations. But the real coaching happens when we're creating capacity with this person, when we're creating their own strength, their own muscles to do what they need to do in their life. And then our ego has to shift. If you are a rescuer and you want to become a coach, you have to give up some of that ego that you get, that ego gratification that you get from being the rescuer. The rescuer is often the person who works long hours, who heaps up the problems of the organization on their shoulders and feels very kind of self-satisfied about the fact that if they weren't there, the whole place would fall apart. The coach doesn't look at things that way. The coach says, I'm part of a team. Every member of the team needs to contribute, and I'm going to increase the capacity of other people to do better things with their life rather than simply step in when they can't. And then the persecutor, what we want to now think of is the challenger. Now, we all need challengers in our life. I think most of us don't have enough of this, frankly. And this can be a shift in behavior. We can look at somebody who's operating in a persecuting modality, and we can coach them to change into the challenger. And the challenger is more respectful, and they're less likely to blame people for what's wrong, but to challenge them, to say, we can do better, I can do better, let's grow together, rather than complaining about people's frailties and inefficiencies. We work to change them, we work to increase their capacity. Again, this whole idea of the coach and challenger now being people who are invested in the creator, but not either holding the creator down or fixing things for them. Now, one thing I do like to point out is that this can simply, for moving from persecutor to challenger, can simply be a change in perspective for this person when they move from victim to creator. So when you're in a victim mindset and you choose to become a creator, you may simply look at things differently. You may look at something that this person did. When you were a victim, you saw it as persecution. When you're a creator, you may look at that very same activity, that same habit, that same way of communicating and say, I'm being challenged. I'm being challenged rather than persecuted. So some of this just happens through the lens of this shift as well. People have asked me, when we've presented this before, people have asked me, how do I do this? How do I become a creator? How do I become a coach? How do I become a challenger? It's not like a simple set of instructions we can give you for that. It's all about self-awareness. It's all about seeing yourself on this map. It's all about recognizing your behaviors. It's all about getting feedback from others, from people who watch you and work with you and care about you to help you evolve out of this victim triangle and into the empowerment dynamic, which is really how you want your organizational culture to be. We're supporting each other, we're challenging each other, and we're taking a lot of personal responsibility, and all of us in our own way are being empowered to make the organization stronger or better. So take a hard look at yourself through these lenses. I had to do the same thing, and I still do today, and there are times when I still catch myself playing one of these unproductive roles and asking myself how I can move into a more productive way of showing up. Thanks very much.